Hey everybody, how are you? This is Jim Prusak from the Pain PT. And if you like this video today, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please do. And pass the word around. I'm continuing to send out information on the mind-body perspectives of somatic, physical, chronic symptoms in the body. And today I had the pleasure of speaking with Kent Bassett, who you're soon going to learn more about. You may have heard of him. He is the producer, director, and editor of the film This Might Hurt, which is a documentary about the work of Dr. Schubner and work in the mind-body field, helping people recover. And this is a groundbreaking film to promote awareness in this field of these conditions. And so you hear more about that and how he came to produce that and about his own journey overcoming chronic pain and how he's now helping people further by doing some coaching in this mind-body field. So Kent Bassett, he is a Emmy-nominated producer and director and editor. He's produced a number of other films and worked on different films. And like I said, is the main producer of the film This Might Hurt. So I hope you find this interesting. And I also wanted to add that we are premiering his film for free through my website from December 1st through the 13th. So you can follow the link here in the video if you want to get access to it, as well as offering a free question and answer session on Sunday, December 10th at 4 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. Pacific time. And in that question and answer session, I'll be taking questions about back pain, low back pain, neck pain, and its relation to mind-body disorders. And we'll talk more about that as it's one of the biggest areas that people have symptoms in, and it's related to mind-body conditions. So without further ado, I'm going to turn over to the interview. Take care. Hey, everybody. I am here today with Kent Bassett, the filmmaker and director and producer of This Might Hurt. I'm very fortunate to have him here. Kent, how are you doing today?
Feeling good. Glad to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, and we talked off air. I wanted to bring you on to kind of give a background and share your story since you've kind of come from an area of chronic pain yourself, and then move into a little bit about how you produced this film and then what you're doing today. So I'm really happy you're here.
Thanks.
Yeah, so maybe I'll just turn it over to you, and maybe you can share with the audience your personal story of what you went through with chronic pain.
Yeah, so when I was 22 years old, I was in college. I developed a debilitating pain in my arm. It started like in this part of my arm, and then it spread to like the underneath the forearm, through my fingertips, and then to the other arm. I thought it was from lifting weights, and I also had doctors suggest it might have been an overuse injury from maybe typing too much, playing guitar, plus all the weightlifting. And the diagnosis was tendonitis, also repetitive stress injury or repetitive strain injury. And the doctors recommended physical therapy. So I did that. They also recommended opioids. So I was put on Vicodin. And none of those things worked. The pain was getting steadily worse. And the message I was getting from the doctors was like, be careful, like you can damage your arms. And I had a friend who had similar like symptoms, and she, also I saw a lot of fear in, in the way she was dealing with her pain, resting them, icing them all the time, resting her arms. Hers was from, playing piano. And, it just so much fear started to creep in as I was facing down the idea that I couldn't use my arms that much. One doctor said you probably never would be able to have a job that uses your arms like for typing. And I was like, what
Terrible.
jobs don't you need your arms for? Like there's not a lot of them.
Become a professional runner.
Right. And so I dropped out of college because I couldn't write my papers. I kept trying to find ways to rest my arms and feeling like I was re-injuring them. And then, gosh, so many different doctors. The one doctor just said I needed to eat more. So I have like a thin build, and, he's just like, just eat more. So my mom was like, you have to eat more. So I was eating a lot. That didn't help. And so many things that didn't work. And
How long
then
was this process like that you were going through the medical world route?
I had 8 months of, going in and out of visiting doctors. And finally, I visited like a premier arm surgeon in New York City who invented new kinds of, hand and arm surgery. He seemed like a very smart person, and he said, there's no good diagnostic box for what you have. The pain is non-specific. It's dispersed through your whole arm. He can't operate on me, he said. And he said, we don't really have a good solution for you. Um, and that really sent me, looking into other ways of understanding pain. So I read a book called Spontaneous Healing by Andrew Weil, which mentioned John Sarno's work, somebody being helped with their back and leg pain. And so I was like, leg pain, arm pain, maybe there's a connection there. So I read John Sarno's book, and immediately I was like, oh, this is what I have. It's
You had
clear.
one of those sort of aha moments or revelations that this is me.
Yeah, yeah. I still remember to this day, reading the Mind Body Prescription and the Barnes and Noble and just being like, oh my God, like this explains it. And I knew I was gonna get better too. I was just like, okay, the way he talks about how the body is evolved to heal from injuries, and that when it doesn't heal, this is because of anxiety, mind body things, emotion, stress, trauma, and that you can recover. Just taking away the fear that my body was permanently damaged was really all I needed, I think, to recover.
Mm.
I was very fortunate in that sense, and most people don't recover that
So
quickly.
you
But
had what you could say a book cure, would you call
yeah,
it?
yeah, I had a book cure, and the next day my pain was gone, and I
Ah.
started happily typing on my computer. And my mother was like, "Don't do that. Be careful. You got to be careful with your arms." And I was like, "Don't tell me that. I'm gonna be fine." Like I'm gonna have a new mindset now, and I could feel the pain coming back as I was typing into my arms. And then I used techniques from his book where he says you can talk to the pain, and I was like, "Pain, go away. I don't need this warning system." I was just looking at my arm, and then I could feel the pain dissipate. And
Wow,
that
so
was
you
just
already
like,
had that connection going in your brain like that. So you use self-talk, which is one of the strategies at that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it worked. It doesn't work for everybody. It's just so many people. We have so many different strategies for people based on what works for them. But I was fortunate that was another light bulb. It's like, okay, I have some amount of influence on it. It's not just like something that happens to me. Like pain is a dynamic process where our own beliefs and thoughts and emotions play into it, and we can work with it. So that taught me a lot, just that one experience of being able to modulate the amount of pain I was in with my thinking.
Yeah, it's powerful when you get that experience, isn't it? That you have some control, mind control, power in your brain to affect that. It's almost like, wow, I can't believe I just said that and it actually listened to me. I know it down,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And I've started working with people who have chronic pain now, and I found that not everybody, develops that ever or develops it quickly. I was fortunate that it happened the day after I read the book. I hadn't started working with a practitioner, and I didn't really need to at that point in my life. I just sort of implemented the ideas in the book. I did emotional journaling around some of the traumatic experiences I had in my life, and the pain didn't return. Sorry, actually I should say the pain started moving around in my body
Mhm.
as I was doing this emotional journaling. And so it would move up to my shoulder where I never had pain, I never had an injury there. And that was another moment. I was like, wow, the mind is teaching me, that this pain is so much more subjective and dynamic than I had known. It moved to my chest. I had head pain. I had ringing in my ears at one point.
Mm.
And it felt like my mind was going through all the different symptoms Sarno talks about in this book and being like, what
Symptom
about here? Can we
imperative.
put this symptom over here? Can we move it over here? And, I gained confidence each time I could kind of work with the symptom and watch it go away. They went away pretty quickly within a day or two.
You
Um,
didn't
so
get,
that,
so it sounds like you did a nice job. You didn't get fooled by the symptoms, the new ones coming in. You were aware, you were picking them up and knowing they were just the form of the same thing.
yeah, I had a real like conversion around the medical system at that point where I just came to really fully believe that so much of the things that we medicalize or pathologize don't need to be medicalized. And just I can almost go too far where it's like if I stub my toe, I'm like, oh, it's probably my mind. Like I really flipped and I went very far in this other direction. And working on this more, you just start to see how common the mind-body dynamic is responsible for people's symptoms. And I tend to presume my symptoms are mind-body until proven otherwise, which I think
Mm,
has saved me a lot of trips to the doctor. And not
absolutely.
yeah, every once in a while I kind of work myself up and I'm like, oh, actually that was a medical thing. But
Right.
by and large, I think it's a real shift of perspective that can be helpful and has helped me a lot.
Yeah, I've considered the same thing. I consider it TMS unless proven otherwise. And I'm a physical therapist, so for me to say that, it's been quite a conversion to think that way. Um, but it is a revelation, it is a paradigm shift, like you said. So you were 22 years old, you had that, you had 8 months or more of pain, and then boom, it was gone just like that. And you got over some of the other symptom imperatives. How long did the symptom imperatives take to settle out?
I think about 2 or 3 months, something like
Okay.
that.
Okay. So not too long. And then after that, what happened? You went back to work. You were in school at the time, you said?
So
You were,
I had dropped out of school. I managed to finish my coursework like using dictation software when I was still in pain, which drove me crazy and was very tough, and dictating to my mom my papers, and that was stressful. But yeah, so I then decided to go to film school after recovering, and I did a 3-year program there, and was always thinking like, hey, someone should make a film about that stuff. That was a really powerful experience, and kind of just assumed somebody would make a film, and and then years later, I think like so when I was about 29, I was like, I don't think anyone's made a film yet. Of course, there was somebody making a film. Michael Galinsky was making all the rage, but I didn't know that yet. And so I started talking to Dr. John Sarno about making a film with him. Eventually, that led me to Dr. Howard Schubiner, who's in the Detroit area. And I called him up about making a documentary in 2012, I think. Yeah.
2012. Okay. So it goes, starting point was pretty far back from where we were today, right? About 11 years. So
Yeah.
2012. So you reached out to Dr. Schubiner, and what happened from there?
Yeah, he was wonderful to talk to on the phone. He was very, easy to talk to, and it was just kind of like, yeah, you want to do it. He remembers this differently than I do. He was like, "What? That's a crazy idea, making a documentary about this." But my memory is that he was kind of like, "Yeah, I suppose, I work with people in a class, and I could try to create a documentary class. Would that work?" And we kind of went back and forth and talked about different ideas. And then I eventually just flew out with a camera and hired crew locally and started filming a documentary class. And so he was sifting through his patients and saying, like, if you're open to being filmed, we're starting a documentary class at this time. And so I met with the patients some of them before they'd even met Howard, and explain why I was making the film. I wanted to make the film so you know people could learn about this other approach to healing, and I told my story to them, and people were really open to it and wanting to like participate so they could potentially help other people in pain. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you flew out there. I know at the time he was doing those group classes back
Yep.
then. And then how much, so at that point you did some filming on those groups, and then what happened from that point on? Because I know it was a process of filming the
Yes.
entire film.
Yes. Yes, the film was a labor of love, as they say. It was, many years in the making. Shortly after we did the initial filming, I met the co-filmmaker, Marion Cunningham, who came on and was a, amazing partner in making the film and helped me rethink. I was a little bit stuck in the film editing and figuring out how to, because it's invisible, right? Pain is largely invisible, and the concepts are very intellectual and sometimes a little dry. And so she was instrumental in kind of figuring out how to tell the story through the people's eyes who were in pain. So the three main people in the film are Tony, Kim, and Maureen. And so we filmed more with them, and caught up with them years later to see, like, did the treatment work or not. We refilmed interviews with Howard. Like, I think we filmed like 7 different interviews so we could really like break down the treatment in the clearest terms possible. and his understanding was evolving, and he, you know, every few years he adds components or adds ways of explaining things. To this day, he's been adding even since we finished the film. And so pulling that all together, you know, hours and hours, 300 hours of footage was a huge ordeal, and we didn't have funding either, so we were paying for this ourselves through our nights and weekends, and we got some help from a few people to pay for things, but all of that was a huge challenge.
So in a sense, it was like a side project, like a passion project you had going at the time. Like you said, didn't have the funding, didn't have, you guys just pouring your own time, energy, and money into it. It sounds like to get this done.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there were times where we were like, you know, we knew we were a few years away from finishing the film, and we'd already put in a few years, and we were just like, can we quit? Can we just drop this? Like, no, nobody cares. Oh God, we can't do it. And just tired of working on weekends, you know, like you, it's like one thing to work a few weekends, but if you work like every weekend for years or nearly every weekend, it's just like, please let this project stop. But we just
How
kept
many years?
going.
So 2012, how many years was it? Um, did it take you guys?
Well, so we finished and premiered the film in 2019 at the Austin Film Festival. And so on and off, you know, it wasn't like like I said, you know, sometimes we would both get jobs because we had to support ourselves and pay our bills. And so we'd be not working much on it for a few months at a time, and then we'd be working full time. And when we were working jobs, sometimes we would be working weekends depending on how intense those jobs were. So yeah, it was on and off for 7 years, probably like full time, like 3 years working on the
Wow.
film, but spread
Okay, so a
over
lot of
seven
time, a lot of
years.
energy, just so the audience knows what goes into producing something like that, that they can
Yeah,
watch in a couple hours. It
I
takes.
know you watch these films and you're like, why does that take so long? You know, it's just an hour and a half. You know,
Yeah, the amount of man hours it takes to produce that, right, is incredible, which is
yeah.
an awesome film. And so, yeah, so you made this film, and it's been a huge success. And you guys, so tell us about, since you made the film, you rolled it out to Austin Film Festival. Then from that point on, what have you done? What has the film done? Where's it gone? Where's it been seen?
Yeah, we're really proud of this part. Speaking of doing it on your own, we also did our distribution campaign on our own. We hired a couple of staff people and we supervised the process. The film played at a couple more film festivals. It played at the Spirit Film Festival. It's played at the Free Film Festival in the Detroit area. And then, but we were most focused on working directly with the people the film could benefit the most. So, like a screening like this with you and with your community, we've done dozens of these with different communities, including the Canadian Mental Health Association, various CRPS groups, and fibromyalgia groups, and things like that. Then we've also worked with medical schools. So we screened with Harvard Medical School, Johns Hopkins Medical School, all the incoming freshmen or first year medical students at Johns Hopkins have viewed the film,
That's
and
fantastic.
USC medical schools. So, you know, and it takes all this time to make these partnerships and make phone calls, emails, set up the, you know, the relationships. But we always just felt like if we didn't do that, then the film wouldn't be able to have the impact that we really thought it could have. And we know now that about 50,000 people have seen the film. A lot of doctors are seeing it through the continuing medical education credits we offer, and therapists are viewing it with continuing education credits as well. So all that like infrastructure is taken. We've been doing this now for over 3 years, reaching out and building partnerships and trying to change medicine. We're really trying to change medicine and get this condition recognized, not just as an unfortunate thing that happens to patients where stress is driving their physical symptoms, but also that there's a way to recover. There's a way to unlearn these symptoms. It's a really hopeful message, and that there's good data backing up. It's evidence-based medicine, and that's been cool to see some of those new studies coming out since we finished the film, showing that this treatment is, you know, effective for 66% of people with back pain, showing that
Yeah,
they can have a dramatic reduction in pain, things like that.
yeah, pain reprocessing therapy. Yeah,
Yeah,
PRT.
yeah, it's a little tweak on what you see in the film, so it adds more like mindfulness and somatic tracking, things like that. But it's a similar kind of
Similar,
orientation.
yeah, similar approach.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. And how has it been received across the board? I mean, I know like it's, you wish people were banging down your door and you had too many people, right? But because you're having to beat the drum. But how has it been received in the audiences?
Yeah, the film, it's been really well received. Of course, the notes we love getting are the ones that are like, I don't have pain anymore. Thank you for your film. And we get like one of those every few months. And those really like, I knew we were going to get one like that because that's what happened with me reading the book. It's like, okay, if I can get better for me in the book, someone's going to watch this film and it's going to lead them to a path of being pain free or largely pain free. And when we got a few of those, I just was so happy, just to know like someone's life can be transformed through a film. It's so gratifying and powerful. And it's one of the things that fueled me during those years. Um, but then we also just get people saying like, wow, it's just a good film. Like I found it compelling and like I was so interested. And, some people who are practitioners, physicians, PTs are like, oh, I didn't know about this. Thank you for making this film. I'm going to do training. There's so many trainings now available for people to learn this. So yeah, I feel like a couple people don't like the film, of course. That always happens. Not going to please
Of
everybody,
course,
but by and large, it's been a really positive
it's
response.
been
Yeah.
well received. Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's just getting the word out. It's just like a grassroots thing still, even the way you produced it to right to get it out there. At some point it's gonna blow up into mainstream, but at this point we're still working on it, you could say, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
but every person you change, I feel like is a person who spreads the message to somebody else. And so there's that chain reaction. So that's amazing. The film is awesome. So yeah, we're going to be as a well, maybe just to do a plug right now here as we're talking about this. We're going to offer that free screening of the film and a question and answer follow-ups. Maybe share a little bit about that. You mentioned you've done these before.
Yeah, so the way you usually works is that we partner with a practitioner or a group like what you run, and we offer the film for free. And then people can come to the Q&A session and ask their specific questions. After viewing the film, usually it'll stir up some question or interest or curiosity around this treatment. And then they have the chance to ask you questions and ask me questions around either the making of the film or how do you help with this or that problem. We're going to focus the conversation between me and you around back pain, back and neck pain. We've never done an event just about back and neck pain before, and that's back pain is one of the leading causes of disability and one of the most common chronic pain conditions. So we're excited to delve into that. And there's a lot of gray areas with back pain where sometimes it's not totally clear. At least the recent study said 88% of people who come in for back pain treatment have nothing structurally wrong with their back that's explaining their pain. But 12% do have at least 12% have structural problems that need attention in a different way than the mind body treatment. So medical treatments of some kind or another, not necessarily surgery, but sometimes surgery and things like that. So delving into that and trying to help people assess what might be going on and where to get good information, so that they're not funneled through the over medicalization and just pushed into surgery, even if they're not sure that's the right thing for them, because that happens to so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. And all those details will be linked here. You can follow the link to get more information about that. That's going to be fantastic. So I wanted to segue that into back to you again. And so you made this film. You first of all, you dramatically got over your TMS, finished for school. You made a film. So you've already done a lot. You've done two amazing things. And now you're doing something else. Maybe share with the audience now how you parlayed this into helping more people.
Yeah, I when I was making the film and spending 7 years on it, I was like, God, I can't wait till I'm done and I don't have to ever think about pain again. But then it turned out after I finished the film, I found interacting with the community, the mind body community, but also the community of people in chronic pain so moving and compelling and fascinating and intellectually stimulating that I decided that I wasn't done with pain. And so I trained as a pain recovery coach or a mind body health coach, in a few different modalities, but specifically what you see in the film around emotional work and pain reprocessing work. And I've been doing coaching for the last year and a half, and I really love helping people, directly, not just by making a film that leads them to something, but actually like relating to people one on one. And I find it to be a really moving experience, and I feel like because I've spent so much time in the mind body community soaking up these concepts, that I have an insight that I can help people reach for themselves around the connection between the mind and body.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say if you've lived it and gone through it and you've come out the other end, that's the best experience you can have. That's the best teaching you can have. And then even all those hours, hundreds of hours you spent with Dr. Schubiner, you've got basically a PhD in some of the training all the time, just absorbing that information from him and seeing him work. He's an amazing individual. And then, yeah, and then some of the other trainings. So you're offering coaching, and so let the audience know you're working with all sorts of conditions, anything that's TMS related, or
Yes, I do. I feel comfortable with all the different conditions. Specifically like musculoskeletal pain is the thing that I've had myself in terms of the arm pain, back pain, neck pain, leg pain, those kinds of things. But I've also read a lot and researched a lot and talked to people a lot about the kind of really common condition of just sort of like a multisystemic symptom. So that is people who struggle a lot with fatigue or widespread pain, brain fog, um, headaches, migraines, irritable bowel syndrome. And a lot of those conditions just require more work and more sensitive, nuanced work with emotions and understanding like triggers, because I tend to think that irritable bowel syndrome and these multisystemic things are usually more severe. They can be more disruptive, more disabling. And so it requires kind of like a slightly more graded approach where you work a little more slowly and you are careful around noticing the arising anxiety and what triggers anxiety and those kinds of things.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's interesting as you work with more people, like you said earlier, you see different approaches working for different people, different strategies, different conditions, and maybe working with one person a little more one way than another way, but in a similar overview of what we're going to offer. But maybe share with the audience some of these things you've seen and learned just working with people. What's been effective? What do you feel like really helps people?
Yeah, every person is so different. That's been one of my takeaways is that, you meet people and they're at a different point. We have this map of what people need to learn and work on and change about themselves, but people show up at all different points on the map. And so some people show up and they know all the pain neuroscience. They know their condition is not a physical medical problem, and so then you can start working on fear reduction right away. And then other people show up and they're more confused and they need the pain neuroscience education, or they need like just help understanding that it's safe to return to activities, that there's nothing structurally wrong with them that's going to get in the way of that. And yeah, I find a lot of people need like the old classic Sarno ideas that like personality types are really prone to developing TMS. So I personally have all those personality types of putting a lot of pressure on myself, being a perfectionist around doing creative work, and being a people pleaser. And so, sometimes those are really glaring right away. You can tell, like, oh, this person puts so much pressure on themselves, and like, how do we reconnect them with a sense of fun? And then the other times, it's a different personality quirk, like they are obsessive about their work in this way that, and so working with personality characteristics, I think, is a big one and can go a long way. And it's surprising how much that can alleviate pain when people get like a new perspective on the way they put pressure on themselves, or the way they are always trying to people please and don't look after themselves or have compassion for themselves, or always looking towards other people, trying to make sure other people around them are happy, those kinds of things. So yeah, there's so much to it, right? I mean, there's so many different ways that TMS can worm its way into your into your mind body system, and ways you can work with it and start to transform those habits.
Yeah, I think that's a great. I call it a pieces of the puzzle, and sometimes those pieces are already set there, and other times we're trying to figure out what pieces need to be addressed or worked on. Sometimes multiple pieces, right? So, yeah, the personality traits definitely. I think Sarno was, I think when people really say that's me, they read his book. I think that's what they're seeing in there, right? They're really this personality traits are staring out or glaring out to them, and I think people really connect with those. Oh my God, I got this one. I got all of them, and they said that's me. But yeah, I think that's right. Those internal drivers of stress and pressure can be huge for somebody, and needs to be addressed in some people. So yeah, fantastic. So yeah, anything else you want to share about what you've kind of learned working with people and helping other
Yeah.
people get better?
Yeah, just was the website or the company is called mindbodyinsight.net. And the other thing I wanted to talk about a little is just how to say it, like, yeah, you don't have to necessarily like buy into the diagnosis of a mind body syndrome. Like some people are, do I have it? Do I not? Maybe it's not this, I don't know. And these mind body practices are useful for everybody, even if you don't have a mind body syndrome per se. So, like, we're talking about like learning how to have self compassion, that's useful for everybody. Um, Learning to know the difference for when you are injured versus when the pain is much more inconsistent and moving around your system and less likely to be origin. That's useful for everybody because we're all going to get injured or have symptoms and wonder, do I need to go to the doctor or do I not? Um, and I also teach a lot of mindfulness. I have a strong background in like doing mindfulness meditation retreats, and like mindfulness is useful for everybody, even if you just want to connect more to your sense of creativity or to the present moment or to be present for the people in your life. And so, yeah, I encourage people to bring their skepticism and bring their uncertainty around this. And you can try on the practices for size and go from there.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right. And you have all this stuff, everything you're speaking of is the brain, nervous system type treatments or approaches. And I feel like the same thing. People come out a different person. It's like you go into this thing, oh, I'm going to treat this condition or symptom, and then you've come out with all these new things, and it's a different person. A lot of times, people reemerge in a different way, so it can be quite a transformation. So it's
Yeah.
awesome you're using all these skills, tools you learn, and even with the mindfulness as well, really important. So again, so people can, if they want to reach out to you or find you, they can go just maybe share your website again. I'll link it here on YouTube as well. Just share how they can get hold of you.
Yeah, I'm coaching at mindbodyinsight.net. So,
Mindbodyinsight.net. Okay, and it'll be on there. That's awesome. Well, I'm really looking forward to talking again. We're going to meet up again about the Q&A, so you guys can learn more about that. And I really wanted to just talk to you today about you and learn about more about you and how you got to this point here. So it's awesome that you decided to come on and share some of your history, and I'm happy you were willing to do that. Any parting words for people out there?
oh gosh, well, I just want to thank you for having me on your channel and for all the work you do. And I'm excited to talk to you more and get into how we help people with back pain and neck pain at the upcoming Q&A.
Yeah, and for all you out there, if you're wondering about that, or even if you just want to learn more about mind body and somebody else but neck pain, back pain who's struggling, have them come watch the film and then come to the Q&A because I think it's going to be really good. So we'll catch up with you then.
Cool. All right.
Awesome. Okay, we'll see you later now. Bye.
See